Welcome back. So this video is going to be a little bit of a shorter one just to introduce the idea of some review and assignments that I have set up for this course. Alright, so basically for each of the main little chapters, there's a review and a practice assignment that I personally give all of my students when I'm teaching this in a classroom. Uh, if you're just doing this for fun, it's always a good thing to just go through, get extra practice. I'm not really giving additional assignments that I would give out, after each lesson. So these are just kind of going over some of the basics of the kind of chapter assignments. So if you're going through the textbook here that I have a link to in the description, we have this review and assignments page. So if you're going through all of this, you start on the coding basics page, and you go through all the lesson. This has just pretty much just a little bit more detail on everything I've mentioned in the videos so far, and a bunch of screenshots, code examples, things like that. In these code examples, you can actually edit and experiment with. Have that there. But once we get down to the review and assignments page, there's kind of a little summary of the main points of the chapter. So always give those a little bit of a read through if you need a refresher but don't want to read all of the pages again. And then if you scroll down, the second part is an assignment. And the one set up for this particular chapter is to look at this image here. So I've got what's essentially set up is a very, very basic GIF. All right, so we have this stick figure character who is just moving across the screen. There is a sky and a sun and a ground. So the goal is to recreate this image on your own using everything gone over in the chapter so far. Now, I'm not going to actually show you all how to do this because then my students taking this course or anyone else who's taking it will find the video and have all of the answers right there, and then they won't learn anything. So that's too bad. But what I do want to point out are just some of the things that you'll need to go over in order to do that. So each of these items is a shape on the canvas. So when you're typing in your code, you'll have to go in and give everything a specific position on the canvas. You'll have to give it a specific color. Using the methods we've done so far, everything can be done. So you have a yellow, some blues, some green. You can experiment a little bit trying to get things exactly as correct as they need to be. And then we have this stick figure here who is moving across, and in order to get him to move across the canvas, you'll have to utilize some variables when drawing the lines. And then you'll also have to utilize some basic math in order to get him to loop back and forth. So you could have this character move and just perpetually move off the canvas and not be seen, but you'll notice that this particular stick figure is looping back to the beginning once he reaches the ends of the canvas. So if you remember in the previous videos how I was able to do a little bit of stuff with some looping with the modulo operator, and then I put a link in the description of that video of a little bit more detailed explanation of as to exactly what that was. And then you can go back into the previous chapters right here to read up on it. You'll need that in order to achieve this code. So that's pretty much it. I think one thing I haven't explicitly mentioned in this video is how to make these lines that are making up the stick figure. So if we go, I believe it is actually in the next unit because it's just broken up by graphics. And if we go to basic and advanced shapes, we have this one here. It's a new function that we haven't actually gone over. It is called line. It's pretty straightforward. but I have this here. You can experiment with it in your code. But if you scroll down just a little bit, there's a description of what everything is right here. So the line takes, you type in line, parentheses, and then you need 4 specific arguments. And it's just an X and Y position on the canvas of one end of the line, and then the X and Y position of the other end of the line. So you can adjust each of those lines independently, just like the triangles, by going in and changing these pairs of numbers. So it's x1, y1, that's a typo, x2, y2 is how I think about it. So you got that, and then there's some other functions here that you can look up in the reference page if you wanted to customize the color of your lines or how thick they are. But I won't get into that because everything in the previous code that we looked at was just the default line thickness. So you can kind of look and experiment with that if you just want a little bit of extra practice once you've kind of gone through some of these things. And if you wanted to attempt to recreate this will just be kind of a little brief assignment to try and do if you wanted to, post your things, show your teacher, comment all the stuff. That would be wonderful, just as a way to show, hey, look, I did this. So when I get to the end of kind of each section, I'll briefly go over these little videos here and these assignments, just as a way to, hey, try this, get more practice, do this thing. So we'll go on that. So that's more or less the end of this kind of coding basics section of code. Again, just as a refresher, these are just very brief intro condensed lessons. Here are the main points for each of this. So the next thing I'm going to focus on is how to utilize some of the variables and the math that we've been doing in order to get some slightly more complex things happening on the screen. So we'll be next diving into the ideas of making tests and things, and having the computer do certain things based on those tests, how to manipulate large sections of data at once, and things like that. So we'll be getting into that in this next chapter here. Again, if you have any questions about stuff I've presented, feel free to add that to the